So, what's the biggest mistake property investors make when they're starting their portfolio? What do first-time investors think is their biggest risk? A lot of first-time investors are really kind of wound up about making mistakes in regards to either the area, the purchase price, or that property panning out if interest rates change. And I'm here to tell you, after 20 years, that is actually not what I see as being your biggest risk when you buy your first investment property. So what we're going to do today is unpack what I think the biggest risk is and then go from there. The biggest risk is actually loan structuring and getting your loan structured correctly for the new purchase. And in there are 4 key areas that I see first-time investors make mistakes in all the time. Number 1 is they take one loan for everything, every debt that they've got, and they wrap it all together. This makes things messy later on down the track when you're trying to apportion what interest you use for what. The next one is, I see them put deposits down on investment properties by using the redraw in their home loan or by using their own cash from their own offset account. Now this is doing them out of a potential tax deduction. Furthermore, I see them combine personal and investment debt together, and sometimes even in the same loan, making it near impossible for their tax agent to decipher what their true deductible interest is. And lastly, they go for cheapest without strategy. Using a home loan as the deposit for your investment property sounds great, has the cheapest rate, but has just done you out of a tax deduction. And really, when we're buying our first investment property, most of the time, tax deductions are nearly the most important part. Now, most first-time borrowers thinking, well, I'm just getting my way through the transaction, I'll sort it out later. And the answer is, most of these things can't be sorted out later. And if they can be, it's certainly not going to be in your benefit. Now, later on down the track, when you're purchasing your second or third property, you have to realize that not getting the structure correct on your first property is then going to have a flow-on effect in your subsequent loan applications. If you can't clearly show which ones are your investment loans and what's your investment debt and how that debt is tax deductible in your servicing calculations for your second and third property, you're really putting those other purchases at jeopardy before you even start. And not only can this make subsequent purchases harder, but it can also make subsequent refinances harder, meaning that you might end up sticking yourself with a lender that is uncompetitive for a longer period of time than absolutely necessary. But why does this happen? Well, the first property that we purchase is our own occupied property, and borrowing for that's really simple. You have one purpose, you have one loan, and you listen to whatever the bank says the product is that you need to purchase it. But when it comes to being an investor, it's not just about the product, the rate, it is about the structure. And it is about how we can put this together that not only meets your requirements to fulfill your purchase, but also meets the requirements for your tax obligations and also meets your requirements for subsequent purchases and meets your requirement for subsequent refinances. There's 4 more things to think of than just the purchase. Now, when you go in and see a bank or a broker that's not specialized in this, they will not think about the long-term outcomes of what it is you're trying to accomplish. They'll think about how to get that new purchase done, but they're not going to be thinking about the next 3, 5, or 10 years of that property investment's life, and they're not going to be thinking about the next 3 or 5 to 10 years about the loans that you've taken out. But if you are serious about being a property investor, you need to come up with a structure that will allow you to grow in the future, will allow you flexibility in the future, and that gives you the most amount of options in the future. So let's unpack those 4 big mistakes and just do a little bit of a deep dive to make sure that you don't fall into any of these holes. So number 1 issue that I always see is not being clear with your personal and your investment debt. Now, obviously, anything to do with the investment property needs to have its own separate loans and own separate loan account so it can be clearly accounted for. But time after time after time, I see the following. I see people using redraw out of their home loans for investment property deposit. I see people paying for property purchasing expenses from their own cash, or worse still, from other sources of private funds. And the worst case I've ever seen is refinancing everything into one big facility for home and purchase. Now, in this particular instance, it was done because the new purchase was going to be a holiday home, and the bank thought it would be all owner occupied and the client would get a better rate. But of course, it's not going to be a holiday home forever. And if that was ever rented, what's going to be deductible and what's not? With all of these issues, it's really hard to understand what your deductible interest is going to be. Accountants hate it, and in a lot of bank servicing calculators, deductible interest is a negative gearing add back that boosts your serviceability and helps you continue to go and buy more property. Doing yourself out of that is doing a massive injustice to your future loan applications. So the correct approach is always to have separate splits for anything that is for investment, and keep clear records and make sure you're using the correct loans and the correct products so it's clear and easy for not only your accountant to understand, but also future borrowings and lender loan applications. So the correct approach is to have a separate split for everything that is for investment. Number one, your accountant or tax agent's going to love it. And number two, it's going to be really clear and easy for credit assessors to understand when you make your next loan application. Now, the next one is cross-securitization. Now, this sounds like the best way to go. You've got a home, you want to access the equity from that, the investment property, you're going to use the same lender. Why not just lean on this one in order to facilitate the purchase? Well, it's a means to an end, but it pretty quickly becomes an issue. It locks you into using the one lender for both of your properties and in the future as well. Also in the future, it's going to remove your negotiation power with that lender. You're not going to be able to correctly negotiate with the lender when they know they've got all your properties and all your properties are tied together, and their loan to value ratios will make it difficult to refinance one or the other away. And lastly, it makes selling a real pain, because should you decide to upgrade your primary place of residence, an undetermined amount of debt is resting on top of it. Likewise, if you do try and refinance one or the other property away, it makes it difficult as well, because you can't determine the actual numbers that you're going to refinance away until you've done valuations. And look, a lot of the time with first-time investors, they don't even make a conscious decision to do this. It's just the structure that's recommended by the bank or by the broker that they're using. A lot of the times it's just a complete accident until they realize, and by that time, it's all too late. So look, a much better solution is always standalone facilities. It's great to use for your first investment property, access the equity where you need it, and then complete the purchase. It's going to give you control over each one of your properties, and it's also going to give you long-term flexibility for refinancing options and extracting equity later on from one or both properties. The next one I see for first-time investors is opting for principal and interest repayments on your first investment property. This can be deathly. The reason being, how is it helping you to pay down your tax-deductible debt at the same time you're trying to pay down your non-deductible owner-occupied debt? So whilst you might be really responsible to be reducing debts, as you've probably been told to do your whole life, paying down and reducing the amount that you owe on your investment property is soaking up cash flow that you could be using to decrease your owner-occupied debt quicker. And there's a flow-on effect for this as well. The more you increase your tax-deductible debt, the more you are taking the negative gearing add-backs out of your debt servicing calculator. So you're reducing debt, but it is actually hurting your ability to borrow more in the future. So interest only, on the other hand, when used correctly, will enable you to preserve your tax-deductible debt, enhance your servicing calculator, and allow you to take that cash flow and dump it into your owner-occupied debt, paying that down as quickly as possible. Now that then means as you pay that down, you can then leverage against that asset to go and buy more properties, and also as you're bringing your owner-occupied debt down, you're then fueling your servicing calculator to facilitate the next purchase. And look, the last one is chasing rate instead of structure. All the time I hear, what's the cheapest rate for this? What's the cheapest rate for that? But look, it's irrelevant. If you're consistently chasing the very cheapest rate, but that lender that's offering that rate won't allow you to have the correct products or the correct structure, or has a reasonable servicing calculator that say has negative gearing add backs, then it's a waste of time considering that lender in the first place. Chasing the cheapest rate today could limit the amount that you can borrow, because that lender might have restrictive lending policies, they might restrict interest-only terms, that lender might have higher rental shading in their servicing calculator. So always put it in context. Sometimes 0.1% discount today might mean not being able to make a purchase in 6 or 12 months' time. Now, I would prefer to have another property worth, say, $500,000 that's going to go up by 5% in the next 12 months, making me $25,000, rather than worry if I'm paying $500 or $600 too much in interest on that loan. And lastly, on this topic, it loops back to our previously discussed topic. Interest-only loans have a higher rate than principal and interest loans do. So this can be a double whammy. Not only do people chase rate and choose P&I, but it works against them twofold. Not only are they missing out on the correct structure, the correct tax deductions, the cash flow that they could use, they're also missing out on these two key loan structuring things together, which is hurting them twice as much. So as you can see, sometimes the greatest risk to a first-time property investor isn't buying the wrong property. It's buying the right property, but getting the structure and your finances wrong. So if you think you've gone down the wrong path, maybe it's not too late. If you're a first-time property investor and you have made some of these decisions, it's still easy enough at this stage to unwind it and redo it in the correct format. And if you are thinking that it's too late, then by all means, reach out, have a chat with us. We can let you know, based on what we see, whether there's something that we could do to help your circumstances and prepare you for the next purchase. Now, and if you're right at the beginning of this and you've got your pre-approval, but you think some of the things that I've said today have raised alarm bells for you, then obviously we're happy to have a chat with you as well. So there's a link below that'll take you directly to our calendar. You can book in and have a chat with either myself or my team. And as always, please like and subscribe to our channel and share this with any other budding investor that you think this might help.